It's very, very faint for me. But if we just carry on, I love that setting that you're in. That looks beautiful. Shall I just carry on? We've had I'd like to say hello again, folks. We've had a couple of interesting weeks where things have just happened that either I've not been able to be here, or Steve's not been able to be here, or StreamYard have been having a little bit of a glitch, or whatever's been happening. There's always been some kind of glitch. So I'm here today. And I'm from a different setting, so I'm in a different place, as you can see. And the reason that I'm in a different place is because I'm doggy sitting for my friend. And she has three little dogs. I can't remember what types that. The two youngest, at 8 months old, are two little Yorkshire Terriers, who are absolutely adorable, but not quite fully house trained. So I've got the pleasure of attending to that and seeing to that for them, and making sure that we keep the house odor free as best as possible, with two little dogs that keep they're well trained to the back door, so it's all in one area. But that's it done. So what I want to talk to you about today is about the notion of victimhood. Now, I am going to just look at, and it is about it's about how we make decisions, and what kind of decisions do we make if we're in a sense of victim. So what do we do? How do we do it? What is it that it be? So why people make bad decisions when in victim mentality? So I think first we need to think, what is victim mentality? And many of us are conditioned into playing the victim to get results. So if you think about it, and we also get attention, and we also get sympathy, and we also get lots of other things just by playing victim. Now, that's not to say that bad things won't that bad things don't happen if you don't, but you don't have to be a victim to them. And I think one of the things that I think of this as an example of was during the it can't have been during first, was it during, it was between between the two lockdowns. And I was staying at my daughter's house, and we had an unexpected visitor during the night. And that unexpected visitor that we didn't even know about until the next morning came in. He took my Kindle, he took my handbag, he took my phone, he took my daughter, he took the children's iPads, he took Sarah's handbag, he took her things. He took everything that he could that was downstairs, that was practically movable, that we just didn't hear them. And it was quite interesting, the different reaction between myself and my daughter, because my daughter, and it's the kind of thing of how do we make decisions when we're a victim? But I'll come to that in a moment. So what happened was, we called the police, obviously, and we put the report in, and then the police give you this thing of, do you want to get in touch with victim support? And I kind of go, whilst I may have been robbed, it doesn't make me a victim. In definition, it makes me a victim to the crime, but it doesn't mean to say that I have to live in that victimhood. I call it, I describe something that happens like that more as an inconvenience. And it's not I've actually had it where I was working upstairs and somebody came in and took my computer and disappeared and went. And again, I don't feel afterwards as though I don't feel unsafe. I don't feel worried. I don't feel concerned. I just find it an inconvenience. Victims relive the drama over and over. It gets you the attention. It gets you an emotional feedback. You know, when people go, oh, that must have been awful, I kind of think, well, no, it just was. And if we adopt the notion of it just was, then it takes a lot of the emotional attachments to the event away. Because we are emotional beings, and because we are, I mean, I would say that that's the third time. It is just the third time. No, it's the fourth time in my life, and that's of 64 years. That's the fourth time that I have been the inverted commas victim to a burglary. And each time it's been very different scenarios, and it's been and it's been resolved. The police have been absolutely marvellous. The police have always come, the police have always done what they're meant to do. And then I haven't gone away then feeling as though I have got to watch my back, I've got to be careful of this, got to be careful of that. And I do confess to be the kind of person that will come down in the morning sometimes and discover that I forgot to lock the door the night before I went to bed. So it's that type of situation, and then nothing's happened. There are others who would leave that door open, and then instantly, because they go, "Oh dear, I didn't leave it open," then that actual energy, because we're talking about energetics, and as you know, me working within the realms of the spiritual dimensions, we then work. We can then draw the situation to us again and again and again. And it's the kind of thing that once you start thinking of yourself as the victim, it has two impacts. One, it has a mental impact. It has a mental impact that your thought processes then degenerate. And the thing is that you then focus on the events that caused you to be a victim. So if you are focusing on having been robbed, if you are focusing on being ill, because that illness is one where some people do play victimhood, then what happens is that energetically you are creating, and we're talking about the law of attraction here. What you are doing then is you are creating the situation whereby you are much more likely to get a repeat of the negative situation because you're living in it and you're thinking about it and you're energetically magnetizing it to you again and again and again and again. And you don't actually need to do that. You can be separate to that. So what goes with victimhood? Let me have a look at my little list so that I can talk you through it. Right. So when you're in, what is victim mentality? So when you're in victim mentality, what you will hear, and it's the kind of thing that comes with you'll hear it in conversations or you'll see it in action. So it's not my fault. It's not my fault. I didn't do it. It's not me. I don't. And complaining. Now, I don't know if you've ever been in the company of somebody that complains continuously. And can you tell me, did it bring you joy? Did it bring you happiness? Did it raise your spirits? And the answer is no. So I have to confess that if and when I do complain, I tend to do it as a joke, because that takes away the energetics of being a victim. Victimhood implies there is a perpetrator and a victim, and sometimes then there is the rescuer, because it depends on which ones you fall into. So, and this is sometimes known as the drama triangle: perpetrator, victim, and rescuer. So when you are and all of those feed into the victim mentality. All of them feed into the process of victimhood, whichever place you're in. So whether you're being the bully and bullying someone else, you're in victim mentality, because it's the notion that one is superior to another, and that you can behave in that way towards someone else. If you're being the victim, then obviously you're the one that's at receiving end, and then the rescuer. Now, I didn't tend to live victim, but boy, was I brilliant at living in rescuer territory. And if you think about it, when I worked as a nurse, the thing about helping people is, when we're talking about how to avoid being in the rescuer victim mode, is that when you are helping someone, help them from a position of seeing them as whole, help them from a position of not seeing them as victim, and help them only when they ask for help. Because we actually create people, we disempower others by helping and jumping in before they need it. And I confess here that this is my pattern within the system, that I tend to want to rescue people. I tend to want to, if my daughter phones up and she's got a problem, I want to solve it. I want to resolve it for her. I want to rescue her from it, as opposed to just listening, allowing her to explain and find out her own solutions. I have got much better at it, but I still do recognise that I do it at times. The other part of victimhood is, as we've said, blame, and it's also shame. So when many victims are meant to, when in victimhood, you're made to feel ashamed of something that you have or haven't done. What goes with victimhood is the world is against me. What goes with victimhood is difficulty coping. What goes with victimhood is feeling powerless, stuck in negativity. And also sometimes victims are incredibly good, and this is goes with their having had this challenge again as a rescuer. They feel attacked when somebody tries to offer helpful feedback and then they negate it. And the biggest one, and I sometimes do this one, is the self-pity. If I'm feeling a little bit down, I'll joke and say, I'm off to have my pity party, and I'll see you when I've had it. Feel my pity party, acknowledge the emotions, acknowledge what I'm feeling, acknowledge that actually I'm coming from that position of feeling sorry for myself. Allow the ocean. It is like an ocean. It is like a wave that comes over you. But allow the emotion. I allow the emotion then to wave through me. And as it waves through me, it then come out at the other side and feel so much better. But it's about acknowledging the emotion. I'm not feeling that I'm a victim. I'm just acknowledging that there is an emotion to what I'm feeling at that point. I recognize it to be transient. Because if we don't recognize it to be transient, and this is where a lot of people get stuck, they get stuck in the self-pity mode, as opposed to just allowing it to recognize this is an emotion, this is what I'm feeling at this moment. As with all things, this too shall pass. I think that makes sense. So when we're in, so what is the impact of that victim mentality? Well, it leaves you feeling disempowered, but also what it does is it puts you in, it leaves you feeling unsafe. And when you feel unsafe, what happens is your body goes on to high alert. And when you're on high alert, it means that it's like you're constantly aware. So you've just been burgled, and then you go into bed the next night, and there's one of the normal little sounds that is the house settling down, as we call it. And you hear that noise, and you hear that and think, what's that? And then your body's pumped up because you were already on alert and aware. And then as soon as you hear anything that resembles even the slightest thing towards that has caused you the stress, your body then immediately goes into the stress response. And as I've said to you many times, once you're in the stress response, what you are also in is you've got the hormones pumping, and it stops you being able to recuperate. It stops you being able to go into the restorative mode of the parasympathetic. So we're talking about autonomic nervous effects, and the autonomic nervous system is your out of conscious awareness nervous system. So it's not when somebody pricks your finger and you go, ow. It is the fact that it is what sets you on edge, ready for if somebody is the tension that comes with with fear. So it is about fear, and as a victim, fear plays a huge part. So when we then have, so when you are in fear as a victim, you are not in your what we call your frontal lobe, because what happens is when you go into when you feel unsafe, your brain switches into the parts of your brain that switch on are these parts at the back here that are all about you, and lower down. It's the what they call the dinosaur part of your brain. It is the reptilian part of your brain. It is the fight or flight part of your brain. It is the one that keeps you, that is fundamentally there to help keep you safe. And if you go into, and when you turn on this part of your brain, what happens is it switches off this frontal part of your brain. Now, the frontal part of your brain is where your personality resides. It's where your decision making and your, what we describe as higher cognitive functions live. Now, that sounds like a big posh term, but what it means is you're able to think clearly. You're able to think. It's the part where you do thinking. It's the part where you do analysis. It's the part where you can balance the pros and the cons. It's the part that when it's switched on, your body can return to its homeostasis. It can return to its unstressed situation. But the point is, so what I was saying earlier is, what impact do you think this will have on being able to make a wise decision? And the answer is, you're not able to make a wise decision when you are in a heightened state of fear, because you're not thinking, you're actually operating from instinct. And whilst that's absolutely amazing at helping to keep you safe, and what the instinct that you're working from is thousands and thousands and thousands of years of inherited instinct, but what you're not doing is being able to think through a situation. So if you have an important decision to make, it's okay. I mean, you make immediate decisions when you're under stress, like, how do I get out of this dangerous situation, if it's because you're in a dangerous situation. But if you're not in the dangerous situation, but you're still feeling impacted and stressed from a previous event, or you're feeling impacted and stressed about a future event that hasn't happened yet, but you're worrying about it, then what you are in is a position of not being able to make a wise decision. So this is why, if you have any important decisions to make, so it's like, don't make the decision to, just as an example, don't make the decision to just leave somebody immediately after you've had an argument. Think about it. Notice patterns. Is it one argument? Is it more than one? Is it a pattern? Is it a system? Is it something that you can do something about? But when you're in that angry or stress-related situation at that time, that you either you've been the anger, either you've been the screamer and thing, or you've been at the receiving end, then it's not the time to make the decision. The time to make the decision is when you have calmed down. Because when you've calmed down, you will notice that your brain starts coming into thing again. It's not the time to get children to make a decision if they've just thrown a paddy, because it takes 20 minutes for your body to come back into its normal homeostasis, as we call it. Its normal balance of hormones. Its normal balance whereby your brain is then switched back on again. So I just wanted that. So what do we do then? And I mean, the other kind of is learn how to. So if you're feeling disempowered, if you're feeling like the victim, how do you then get out of it? Because it's all right, come and say, well, you can all right say that, but I am a victim. I am the victim of how he's treated me. I am the victim of what she's just done. I am the victim of that thief that just came and grabbed my handbag. And yes, I agree that at that point you were a victim, but you don't need to remain a victim. And that in calling on your inner resources, so there is a wonderful affirmation to go with this to help you get out of victim mentality, and it's to step into your what I describe within the archetypes. It's to move from the victim archetype and step into your warrior archetype, because your warrior archetype is the opposite to your victim. Your warrior archetype is the one that knows that you have an internal resource that is available to you at all and any time that you choose to have it. I have a friend, and I mean, she's written a book about her experience from having been a battered wife and to having been the victim and having been the subject of that. And she's incredibly strongly now in her warrior. And she has recognized her immense, incredible strength, and she has gone from being that victim to being an independent businesswoman, coaching people on how to do self-defense, coaching people, I mean, on writing books. She's the one that's helping me to write my book right now. And her name is Marav Tarka. If anybody's wanting to write a book, just look her up. And and she is absolutely phenomenal at being able to step into the warrior, what I call her my warrior princess. So she is incredibly strong at being able to step into that warrior. So it's a little bit like the song by Heather Small, Search for the Hero Inside Yourself. Find that hero, because we all have that warrior consciousness. We all have a part of us that is able to do that. And this is actually our true selves. When we are in victimhood, we are separated from our higher self. When we are in victimhood, we are separated in many ways from our soul, which may sound crazy, but it's in that we are separated from our connection to our soul, and our soul and our higher self are the parts of us that have your back. So another statement that you will hear from a warrior is, "I've got my own back," or "the universe has my back, and I know I can access that power, that source from the universe at any moment should I need it. I can call on a power far higher than mine as long as I am connected to my own power. And it will answer, and it will result, and it's amazing the changes and the differences that it can make, that can take you away from feeling the victim. Because when you step out of victimhood, when you move into your power, then when you move into your power, you are in that position whereby, one is, you can make much more sensible decisions. You can see the pros and cons. You can see, and also you can link into a higher power that can also give you guidance. And especially as when I speak about when I'm in doubt, I pray for guidance. So we're talking about decision making. So if I'm not sure which direction to take, and apparently it's part of my human design, and I have a friend who's incredibly good at human design and helped guide me through this. But when you're at the peak of any emotion, is not the best time to make an impulsive decision. So for me, impulsive decisions don't always have the best results, is what I would say. Because if I'm on a high and I make the decision, and then afterwards I think, why on earth did I offer to do this? Why did I say this? What was I thinking about at the time? Because at the time I was just caught up in the emotion and not thinking about the consequences of the decision. And the other is when you're at an all-time low, again, you do not make the best decisions. When you're in that victim mentality, when you're feeling down, when you're depressed, when you're anxious, you are not going to make the best decisions. So the time to, as I said, is a decision only takes moments, but taking the time towards that decision can take, I always say, take as long as you need. And you're just making a decision at that time, not to make an immediate decision. And I have been caught out so many times by salespeople, because they're very good at that. They're getting you to push to make a decision immediately. And I mean, how many of you have ever been victim to a salesman? And I'm putting my hand up here. I have been. I'm not as easily sold to now, but I certainly used to be. Because all I could see, because I got caught up in the emotions, I got caught up in the benefits, I got caught up, and I've since learned to listen to that little inner voice that goes, I'm not sure, and don't allow, and it was my personal self-doubt and victimhood that would allow me to think that they knew better than I did. And because I always believed that other people knew better than I did, I believe a salesman over my own internal thoughts and processes, because I thought they knew better than me. And the number of times I've ended up taking things back, the number of times I've ended up cancelling strategies, the number of times I've done all of those kind of things is quite simply being because I have been in my victimhood at the time that I made a decision. So that brings me more or less close. I don't know, Steve, if you can hear me. I've come to the end of my little diatribe for today. And the final statement, it's not just search for the hero inside yourself, because I love that song. It is to become aware that you have all the resources and the courage to navigate any situation. And when you become aware, and if you go to sleep, recognizing that you have the resources and the courage required to navigate any situation, however dire that situation is, then in acknowledging that you have the resources, the universe will deliver you the answers. And I'm not saying it'll do it immediately, and I'm not saying it'll resolve things instantly, though occasionally that has been known, but it will give you the answers that you are looking for. So thank you very much. I'm coming to the end of this. What I would like to remind you all is that my book, Me and My Worry Monster, because like I said, I've played victim quite a long time, and my worry monster was absolutely amazing at putting me into the victim mentality and keeping me in self-doubt. And it was, I'm just letting you all know that in September, my book will be ready. I have got the cover printed. I'm absolutely thrilled with it. So the cover's been in print, and it's now time that I will be looking come September when the launch comes for everybody's support. That on the day, I'll let you know when it is, that if you're just willing to go on to Kindle Books at the time and buy a copy for 99 pence, then you will be doing me no end of a service. And you'll also be doing yourself a huge service, because that book has got some of the most amazing tips for how to manage anxiety, stress, and worry. And that comes to the end of today. My book is called Me and My Worry Monster, and it's snapshots on a life lived with anxiety. And then it gives you 5 methods and tools for how to resolve anxiety and how to diminish it and how to move through it and how to come out of it at the other end. Like I have. On the whole, my worry monster, from being like this big, has now kind of got down to this big. Still occasionally sits on my shoulder and has a little whisper in my ear. And sometimes I'm pleasant and polite to it and say thank you for your concerns, and I'll take it into consideration. And other times I quite simply tell it to naff off. I won't be with you next week, Steve, because I am going to be away. I'm working. I've got some work that's going to involve me working. Unless you have any sessions that are of an evening, if you could let me know. But I won't be available on Tuesday afternoons for a few weeks. But thank you, everybody. Thank you for listening to us here on Crossroads. Thank you, Steve, for providing us with this opportunity to help share our wisdom and hopefully help other people out there. Thanks.